I'm a lover of butterflies. For me, butterflies signify so many things. Beauty coming out of something very painful, light at the end of that tunnel. And I wanted to turn my story around. I believe that my children are not dead, I believe they're in heaven. So I turned that pain by wanting to support other women and to bring other life. So for me, I've been on this journey, in terms of supporting other women for over 12 years.
Wow.
And for every child that is born and every woman that I support, and has a baby at the end, or actually is able to smile and kind of live again, for me, that is the end product. That kind of solidifies the healing that I had and reinforces that healing and motivates me to keep doing what I do, because I
Mm.
know that being in a place of pain, being in a place of grief and loss is a very difficult place. I
Yes.
mean, there are times, when I just thought, you know what, I just don't want to wake up. I couldn't kill myself because I don't believe in suicide personally. But I just wish that, I'll just sleep and, just not wake up because the pain was too
Mm,
much.
mm,
And
mm.
nothing was taking it away then. I just couldn't deal with it. Dealing with people's questions, people that thought, oh, you had a baby when I went back to work 12 months after, asking how's your baby and having to explain there's no baby and this happened to me, bumping into people on the road, bumping into people in the supermarket, and you're not expecting to have those conversations and you have to bring it all. So all those
Wow.
memories were always flooding in different ways and forms. But I just say that I wouldn't let this triggers, after that journey and that process of walking through this, I didn't want those triggers to be negative, and and I wanted a time that would come when I'll be able to smile when I thought about my children. It's not from a place of pain, but it's from a place of purpose. And for everyone that I interact with, everyone that I support, for every baby that is born, I just feel I'm part of that story, and they're like a gift to me. So even though they're not mine, for me, turning pain into purpose was that even from broken things, beautiful things can come out.
Hello. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Yourself? Sorry
I'm
to
okay.
keep you waiting.
I'm okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. Wow. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I've been looking forward to talking to you because see, people don't realize how impactful things you do and things that affect women in particularly affects the whole society. You know, I'm a father of three daughters. Okay,
Okay.
I'm an only son.
Mm.
My two younger sisters, in fact, my last sister today is 45th birthday. So
Oh,
yes,
wow. Congratulations.
shout out to Chidima, happy birthday. Anyway, so the things you do affect. I mean, you work on things that affect a lot of women. Okay, so uh, Africa at least have at least 50% of our population, at least women. So you do a lot of work that affects all of them. Okay, include my sisters, my kids, and my mom and my aunties, all that. So I'm very very interested in talking to you today, and to help women all over Africa and including here in the UK to come to see what you're doing and maybe work with you. So, see, we are, Funke, please tell my audience who you are and what you do.
Okay, thanks, Akina. Thanks for having me, and happy birthday to Chidima as well.
Thank you.
So I'm an author. I'm also a speaker as well as a baby loss advocate. So all the work I do is kind of linked in based on my own lived experience. So I'm very passionate about supporting women on their journey to motherhood, either you know, for those who are already mothers and those who are still on that journey. Professionally, I also work in a communications role.
Mm.
And I also am a mom of four children. Two are in heaven and two are teenagers. I'm also married to my husband. I've been married for about 22 years.
Wow.
So yeah, that's
Wow.
a bit about me.
Okay. Okay. So, can you share a bit about what led you to become an advocate for women? and
Okay.
the things you do with them. Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of, alluded earlier on that, I have 4 children and to
Mm,
know more. Shortly after I got married, I had a bit of delay with conception,
mm.
and eventually I did get pregnant, and that was, one of our, the happiest moments of our lives, and we were looking
Yes.
forward to bringing home our baby boy. Everything was kind of straightforward. It was a straightforward pregnancy, low risk, and then come the day of delivery, few hours into labor, things kind of took a different turn. I woke up from sleep from my sleep to see a room full of medics, and I was told that there was no heartbeat and our son had
Wow.
passed away in the womb. It was a big shock because that was something we never even saw coming.
Yeah.
And nothing could have prepared us for something like that. And it was really tough. It was really hard. And I had to navigate all of that. As a couple, we had to navigate all of that
Mm.
by ourselves. I mean, there was a bit of support here and there, but they didn't really address, all the questions that I had. So somewhere from a cultural and traditional perspective. Also, there was also a lot of questions from a faith perspective. Being a Christian, I didn't understand how, bad things like this could happen.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, medically speaking, there was negligence from the hospital, but we can't say 100% that would have changed the outcome, but you just never know. So yeah, there was also dealing with that, that if maybe things had been done differently, or they had attended to me much earlier, or they had brought the baby much earlier and actually realized that the baby was in distress,
Yeah.
the outcome would have been different. So I had to navigate all of that. And most of that was done, alone with my husband. And I just began to think that, what, no one is talking about this, I mean, I only got to know things like this even happened when people came to visit. And then some of my aunties would say, oh, this happened to me. My mom also said she had a couple of miscarriages, but that was things that were never discussed prior to,
Mm.
this experience. And I just thought, why is no one talking about it? Why is this not public knowledge? So I spent a lot of time online trying to find answers, trying to find support. And it was kind of interesting that most times I will come off reading all the stories even more discouraged than when I actually went looking for the stories, and I was looking for hope. But I just didn't get that online. And so I began to do my own research, began to look for my own source of hope. And that led me. And I think when I came through that process of grieving, of healing, I just felt, you know what, there's something that I have discovered that I know other women would benefit from. And
Yes.
and I made that brave choice to actually share my story. I'm a very secretive person, and I have changed over the years. So I'm totally different from the people know me as.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm a very private person, but I've had to share my story,
Yes.
open up my journey so that no woman walks this journey alone. And that's kind of what led me into supporting other women on this journey. And I feel that it's so important that these conversations are had. I mean, it's nearly 20 years since my first loss.
Yes.
And even still now, we are still saying there just isn't enough conversations around this topic. There's still a
Yes.
lot of stigma and shame attached to infertility and baby loss and miscarriage. And 20 years on, I don't think there's been a shift, but we still have a long way to go. And I think that's why it's important that we have these conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, losses like yours affect a lot of women. Okay, a lot of families, and unfortunately, people who suffer loss like yours don't talk about it. Most of them. Okay, maybe they think it's a private thing. Okay, of course it is, but just like you eventually realized those things affect a lot of people, and the only way people can get support is if survivors, okay, I use that word because say stroke survivor, we use that word, people who suffer those life circumstances, if they come together and talk about it, because by talking about it is part of healing, okay, which is very, very important. And secondly, you help you your personal situation will help people who even haven't started on the journey. But when people listen to you, they say, okay, this is what this person went through. And then when they are on their own journey, they make sure that the kind of situations you went through, when they see those things happening to them, they know it's time to take action. You see, and like you said, you don't know if the hospital, the doctors have noticed what is going on and did something then at the beginning, maybe your circumstance would have been different. Okay, you don't know, but your story might guide people to raise their hands. Hey, can you help me? So that those circumstances will not recur with other people. Thank you for that. You described what happened to you, that you turned your pain into purpose to help other people. Can you share more about that? Personal, what actually ignited desire to do something?
Thank you. So prior to my losses, so I actually had another loss shortly after the first one.
Mm,
So my daughter was born about nearly 6 months. So she was born extremely premature, and
mm,
she weighed about 500 grams. And we were told because she was under 24 weeks, there was nothing they were going to do. Because she was not viable medically speaking, and
mm,
there was no
mm.
quality of life. So apparently they were going to do nothing and just let her kind of die naturally. And we were like, that's not going to happen. Because we've been through one loss. We never expected to have a preterm baby. It just happened
Yeah.
suddenly. And only for me to get to hospital, and I was told I was in labor and they could not
Wow.
stop it. So I thought it was something they could stop based on my research, but because I was far too gone, they couldn't even stop anything. I couldn't get steroids. Everything happened like in a flash. But I also knew that in some countries, based on my research, because after the first loss, I'd done so much research, I was
Yes.
kind of on top of it. I'd known that, some babies can survive before 24 weeks. So we kind of put pressure, and that brings me back to my point about advocacy, that as women, you also touched about, when we share our stories, that can help people on their own journeys and help them make better choices and hopefully have better outcomes. And that's
Yes.
why it's so key that we have these conversations, because you just never know who you're going to help. So based on that, I knew that it was important that I spoke up. We spoke up as a couple, and when I wasn't being listened to, my husband would get involved and put his foot down, and then that would make them sit up and do something. But because of us speaking up, they decided trying to keep our daughter alive, and the idea was to hopefully she'll pull through. Well, 11 hours after she passed away.
Mm. Wow.
Unfortunately. Dealing with two losses within a space of 10 months was tough. So I was lucky that I got pregnant second time easily and quickly, because I wasn't sure if I was going to have another delay. But I never expected that I would lose our baby. So yeah, so there was pain.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
tough. And then the questions of, will I ever conceive again? Would this happen to me again? I had something called preeclampsia, where you have high blood pressure, and in my instance, the first instance, the placenta detached from the baby, and that's why our son died.
Yes.
It was a placental abruption.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
and they tell you sometimes with preeclampsia that it could happen again. So you get different medical advice. So I wasn't even too sure if it was going to happen again. How soon to try again. So there was different and conflicting medical advice. So for me, walking through all of that, and after I'd processed everything, I got to a place where I felt I could help others. And
Yeah.
I didn't want the memory of my children to be something painful, but I wanted something beautiful to come out of my story. Because naturally, I'm a very positive person. I supported women, prior to pregnancy. I'd run a mentoring platform, supported women on their own personal journeys. I was more about personal development and empowerment. So I actually had to begin to preach to myself,
Yeah.
that I'm not going to stay here. This wouldn't kind of be the end of me, and I'm a lover of butterflies,
Yes.
so and for me, butterflies signify so many things: beauty coming out of something very painful, light at the end of that tunnel. So and for me, I had to apply all of that to myself, and I wanted to turn my story around, and also to kind of, I believe that my children are not dead, I believe they're in heaven. And it was a living legacy for them. So I turned that pain by wanting to support other women and to bring other life. So for me, I've been on this journey, in terms of supporting other women for over 12 years.
Wow.
And for every child that is born and every woman that I support, and has a baby at the end, or actually is able to smile and kind of live again, for me, that is the end product. For me, I feel that I'm doing it for my children. And for me, that kind of solidifies the healing that I had and reinforces that healing, and motivates me to keep doing what I do, because I
Mm.
know that being in a place of pain, being in a place of grief and loss is a very difficult place. I
Yes.
mean, there are times, when I just thought, you know what, I just don't want to wake up. I couldn't kill myself because I don't believe in suicide personally. But I just wish that, I'll just sleep and, just not wake up, because the pain was too
Mm.
much.
Mm.
And
Mm.
nothing was taking it away then. I just couldn't deal with it. Dealing with people's questions, people that thought, oh, you had a baby when I went back to work 12 months after, asking how's your baby and having to explain there's no baby and this happened to me, bumping into people on the road, bumping into people in the supermarket, and you're not expecting to have those conversations, and you have to bring it all. So there were many triggers. It's funny, my son was born at 11, 12, and for the first couple of months, every day at 11, 12, I would just look at the clock. And for
Wow.
some reason, I don't know how, I just, looked at the time. And that brought all those memories back. Going to a birthday party, my son's name was Isaac. So anyone that was called Isaac, anytime I come across a person called Isaac, I remember, funny enough, my second consultant after we lost our first baby was called it was Mr. Isaac. So all
Wow.
those memories were always flooding in different ways and forms. But I just say that I wouldn't let this triggers, after that journey and that process of walking through this, I didn't want those triggers to be negative, and and I wanted a time that would come when I'll be able to smile when I thought about my children. So for me, it was important that that pain. So when I think about them now, it's not from a place of pain, but it's from a place of purpose. And for everyone that I interact with, everyone that I support, for every baby that is born, I just feel I'm part of that story, and they're like a gift to me. So even though they're not mine, they're a gift to me. So that was the reason, and I just wanted to make sure the woman walks this journey alone, and everyone is on a different is on a different place on that spectrum of healing, on that journey, and
Yeah.
it's supporting women through that journey, for those that I've come in contact with, however long it takes, because everyone has different needs. Everyone processes their loss in different ways, and
Yes.
the disappointment. So for me, turning pain into purpose was that even from broken things, beautiful things can come out.
Yes. Wow. Wow. This is powerful. See, listening to you just now, I'm not religious, but I know there's something greater pushing you. Okay. I want you to talk about it. There's something pushing you, making you do what you do,
Sure.
making you positive, even when many things around you don't seem positive.
Yeah.
Please
Thank you. It's very,
talk about that.
sure, it's a very good question. And I will say that, when my losses happen, I did struggle with my faith. So my faith for me is the center of everything that I do. And that is what motivates me. That is the reason behind my purpose. That's the source of me turning my pain into purpose. So the person I am today and the person that people see is all linked back to my Christian faith and my personal walk with God. But what the interesting thing was that when I had the losses, I mean, I've been through, disappointments, and, as a younger lady, failing my A-level exams. I've been through change, leaving Nigeria, coming here on my own and starting life on my own. navigating, choosing college, finding, and all of that. There were challenges, finding a job, and leaving home, without my parental support. But I was lucky that I had uncles and cousins that, even though not living with me, but they were there, in terms of supporting, and also the church family I joined. But losing my babies was, I think that's that is the greatest catastrophe that can happen to me. I don't think
Mm.
anything else can match that. I don't think anything, else can come to that level. And I believe that because I was able to get through that, for me, coming out on the other side, for me, I believe I can get through anything in life. So
Yeah.
nothing else, is at that level. So I believe that if I could get through that, everything else, what I learned from that process, I can get through anything else. And but the major issue for me then was, why did God allow all of this to happen to me? Where
Mm.
was where
Mm.
was it in the midst of all of this? I felt He really abandoned me. I felt He wasn't there. I was expecting maybe, okay, there'll be a miracle. My baby will wake up, or they'll tell me there was, some miracle happened. I just was hoping for some miracle. But when it didn't happen, and we actually laid our children to rest, and they were being buried, that was when it sunk that, what, this is final, and they're not coming back, and there's no
Yeah.
miracle. And then I had to grapple with all those questions. And it was that journey, of asking questions, of reflecting, of trying to find answers, of reading, of searching, that actually helped me decide, what do I truly believe. So my memoir that I wrote was actually titled "If Only" initially, and I wrote it and I kept it, in the drawer for like 12 years. I just didn't
Don't
feel.
worry. You have a chance to tell us
Yeah.
about that very soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, but the book was called something totally different, and I didn't feel like it was time to release it. But when I did, I felt the title had to change, and it
Mm.
was called Believe. And I realized that throughout my story, it was all about that inner conflict of, what do I truly believe,
Yeah.
and I think I was able to get answers to that question, and that's the reason why I still believe. Otherwise, I would have walked away from everything that I grew up with, and I totally stood by. So it's my faith that kind of embodies everything. And I've come to understand that having a faith doesn't mean that you won't go through challenges. Having a faith doesn't mean that bad things won't happen.
Yep.
Having a faith doesn't mean that God doesn't love you, or that you're abandoned by God. But it does mean that in the midst of all of that, He's always there by our sides, and He'll never
Yep.
leave us. And that, indeed, good things can come out of bad things. So yeah, so I think for me that is what embodies all that I do, and who
Mm.
I am, and what I stand for.
Wow. Thank you, Funke. See, the more I talk to you, the more I'm glad I'm talking to you. Okay, because you bring personal story to make this very real. My sister-in-law is a consultant here in London who cares for premature babies. Okay, so she works with people like yourself and your second baby. That's what she does every day. And my childhood neighbor and best friend for years. What do you ladies call it? Your doctor,
Is it gynecologist or what?
gynecologist. Yes,
Okay.
in University of Ibadan. Okay,
Okay.
she's a professor there. So I have people who work with ladies on these issues, but unlike them, they cannot bring this personal, real personal story like yours. Okay, my best friend never had issues with her own kids. She has three lovely children, but you have these stories that I believe strongly will help a lot of other women. Now, I want to take this a little bit to where my main audience are. That is in Africa. Okay, see, these things happen everywhere. Okay, and especially in Africa because of the difficulty with healthcare. Okay, so we have more challenges around this. So, what are some of the unique challenges African couples are dealing with uh, in terms of infertility, miscarriages, and baby loss? Okay, especially in the cultural context of our society.
Okay. So I mean, even though you might not be in Africa, but if you're still
Mm,
African,
yes.
and you live anywhere in the world, some of these issues are still kind of prevalent. So we may not be physically in Nigeria, but for Africans in diaspora, Nigerians in diaspora, some of these issues still kind of translate across borders.
Mm,
So it still relates to those of us that are still here because some of those issues, I mean, yes, apart from the healthcare, I mean, and the interesting thing is that you know, for Black women and Black families, we face a lot of disparity when it
mm,
comes to healthcare access, even here in the developed world.
okay.
So even though we're in a developed world, we're still at a greater disadvantage compared to other women from other backgrounds. So that's a whole different topic in itself.
Okay.
But going back to Africa, of course, the challenges are unique. We can't, compare the healthcare facility
Yeah.
in some African countries to other developed worlds. So I guess for those for couples in Africa, one of the biggest challenge is just about even around traditional beliefs when it comes to
Yes.
things like infertility
Mm,
and miscarriage and baby loss. So sometimes these things are attached to there's spiritual connotations in some cultures that maybe you've done something wrong, or someone is after you, or
yeah.
someone hates you. So there's all that line of thinking, in terms of spiritual connotations, or they might say there's generational curses, or it's
Mm,
happening from one lineage to another. So maybe I've heard people say, oh, women in this family don't have children, so maybe when someone else gets to that stage, you'll say that's the reason why, because other women struggle to have children. So that's maybe the reason why it's happening to you. And there's a lot of stigma and shame, when it comes to things like this. Unfortunately, also, we live in a culture where, the woman, a value is placed on a woman if she can only give birth to children.
mm,
Unfortunately. So if she can't, she's classified as a second class citizen, even in our own homes. I've heard of, families where husband will bring in another woman because his first wife can't give him children. And then she's relegated to a spare bedroom while someone else comes into the family. So unfortunately, these things break homes, they break relationships. And the question we need to ask ourselves is marriage just for procreation and childbearing? Is that the only
mm,
reason?
mm, mm,
Because when people go into marriage with this expectation, then you know that if they do face this hurdle or challenge, then that marriage will not stand,
yeah.
because they believe that's the sole reason for marriage. Or for some, or in some cultures where you know the woman gives birth to only girls, they believe that, oh well, they want a male child. And
I
then
have
for
three
some,
daughters.
absolutely. For some men, they might have to go out to get a male child, or they keep pushing the boundaries for the women to have more and more and more children. And unfortunately, some women end up dying in childbirth because, medically speaking, their bodies are not able to cope with
Yeah.
that number of children. So we need to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of marriage? Is it just to have a male child? Is it just to have children? And when these things happen, then we know the reason why this make people make decisions because they
Yeah.
haven't had these conversations. Also, there's family pressure. Even if a couple are happy or content, to kind of walk through this journey, however long it takes. Sometimes it's family pressure. There's friends, there's peer pressure as well. Oh, time is going. What are you doing? Why don't you have any children? Why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And one of the things that I think that I'm very concerned. When people are waiting for children, because there's a lot of pressure, personal and external, internal and
Yeah.
external. People sometimes go to all kinds of places. They try all kinds of things because they are desperate, which is understandable. But sometimes some of the things they dabble into actually adds, well, actually doesn't solve the problem, but
Yeah.
brings
Can
on greater problems.
cause more harm. Yeah.
Absolutely, cause more harm physically, mentally, emotionally. People are being taken advantage of. People are being told things are not true. And people are being told people are after you, and then they start breaking up relationships because they think, oh, this person is the cause of your misfortune. And then people that are there that truly love them and care about them, sometimes they break relationships with those
Yeah.
people. So sometimes, so some of those are some of the complexities that we face in an African culture and in African context. And this kind of they add more complexities even to the issue of infertility or miscarriage or baby loss.
Yeah. See, this this dynamics you just explained, do what is the purpose of marriage? Just to is it just to have children? Must a couple have a male child? Now, yes, it's currently is more prevalent amongst us Africans, but I think it's also a worldwide phenomenon. Okay, and for me, I think it's important for couples to talk about these things before they are married. One thing many of us don't do is to discuss all these things. I will
Absolutely.
tell you, and I will tell you, I'm someone who discuss everything, but I never discussed it.
Mm,
I never did. It didn't even occur to me to talk about it.
yeah.
Okay. The only thing I know I wanted is to have my first child as a girl. Okay. Because I wanted her to have my sister's name.
Oh.
Okay. And that happened. Okay. And when my wife was pregnant, her sister was kidding with me that, oh, the baby was gonna be a boy. I was so mad. I'll tell you, I was
Yeah.
so mad at her. Anyway, so the point is this: these issues need to be discussed ab initio,
Absolutely.
and that's something did many of us didn't do. Okay, I mean, for example, when it comes to something that affects us, also, let's say sickle cell disease. Okay,
Yes.
if we had known all these things and at the beginning we check to make sure physically we are adaptable, we're aligned in terms of not being AS. Okay, my wife, for example, is AS. I am AAA. Okay, but I will tell you, we didn't even think about it. So we never, no, we never talked, thought about it. We never did any test. But thankfully, uh,
Yeah.
everything went well.
Yeah.
Okay, so the point is this: we need to discuss more things before we get married. You know,
Totally agree.
it will solve many issues. You
True.
know,
True.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. And I think if one of the things I even came to, I mean, one of the things I'm also kind of promoting is even for those who do premarital counseling,
mm,
that they also kind of have these conversations with a couple
yeah,
because they cover they cover different topics from communication to finance to in-laws to sex and all of this.
yeah.
But this child I mean having children and raising a family is so crucial, like you also said
Crucial,
about blood
very,
blood,
very
blood
crucial.
types, money, because that's some of the things that break up marriages,
Yeah,
and it's important that like you said, and I think for some of us, we only have these conversations because of our experiences. So, and the reason why we're amplifying these conversations is so that those that are coming behind us don't end up in situations that others have
yeah,
fallen into, and
yeah.
they're better prepared.
Yes, yes. You have done impactful work to support maternity health in Nigeria. Can you share more about those efforts and what drives your commitment to this cause?
Thank you. So yeah, so I think one of the key reasons why I was so motivated to do some work in Nigeria is also based on my own experiences.
Mm.
So not directly but indirectly. So I've had two cousins that in well, many years back, I can't remember what year exactly now. Two different cousins, one from my maternal side and one from my paternal side, that
Okay.
died shortly after childbirth.
Ooh.
And I felt it really kind of really touched me, and it's not something that people have really talked about, and for me, this had a profound effect on me. And then
Yeah.
in 2015, a very dear friend of mine, like a sister and a dear
Mm.
friend as well, passed away shortly after childbirth here in the UK.
Wow.
So for me, maternal health is so important. And especially when, especially if it's in situations where it could have been avoided.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things with Nigeria, I read some statistics for you. And when I came across the statistics, I think that is what propelled me to action. And I just thought, you know what can I do? Where can I play a part? So based on the 2023 statistics from WHO, they said that Nigeria had the second highest maternal death rate in the world. And I
Wow.
think when I came across this work, it was still second highest, and that was years before, and it's still the second
Mm-hmm.
highest
Mm-hmm.
many years after. So for every 100,000 live births, 1,047 women die in Nigeria. For
Wow.
100,000 births, 1,047 women die during childbirth. Um, the risk for women in Nigeria in terms of dying through pregnancy or childbirth is 1 in 19. So 1 in 19 women have a high risk of dying either through in pregnancy or childbirth. In developed countries, the risk is 1 in 4,900. So nearly 1 in 5,000. But in
Yeah.
Nigeria, it's 1 in 19. So
Yeah.
when I saw things like this kind of statistics, it is heartbreaking.
Yes, it
So
is.
it's heartbreaking because these are women. These were some of them already have living children, so they're going to grow up without their mothers.
Yeah.
I always had this fear of not growing up without my mother, even as a young person, because her mom died when she was 13. So I already
Mm.
knew so even though consciously, I already knew that, if my mom should die, I don't think I can cope. So I always had this fear. Sometimes she was sick, she went into a hospital, or she had an accident. There was that trepidation in my heart that what if she dies? How am I going to cope? So I know what it means. And even she didn't even die, but I lived with that fear and
Yeah.
what that could mean. So imagine children that their mothers have died, what the impact will be like. And I've had friends that they didn't, their mothers died when they were young. So I know that it's not easy. So, and the question is, some of these deaths are preventable. So it is
Yep.
so painful when it is preventable. Sometimes, yes, there are medical complications. Sometimes there are things that, out of doctor's control. But
Yeah.
sometimes there are things that if we had the right healthcare in place, the outcome would be different. So these are the
Mm.
things that motivate me when it comes to maternal health, especially in Africa, in Nigeria, especially because the stats are alarming and
Yeah.
it's not changing even after years. After the first time I saw the stats, it hasn't moved. So and also because I also have that lived experience of cousins and friends dying.
Yeah.
Personally for me, and anytime I hear a woman has died in childbirth, it touches me. I feel it. And I'm just thinking, if their mothers were here, the difference that will make in the lives of these children. And some people are lucky that they may have someone else that steps in as a mother figure.
Yeah.
Some children don't have that, and their lives are kind of horrible because of the life circumstances they found themselves in. So yeah, these are the things that motivate me. So some years back, I came across some research by a professor at the University of Ibadan. So I was studied at International School Ibadan. So Ibadan is close to my heart. So I was in
Okay.
Ibadan for a number of years because I did my secondary school there. And he had done some research, and they were talking about a first aid device called a non-pneumatic anti-shock garment. So this is a garment that they strap on women, especially women in remote areas or women who are far from a medical facility. Sometimes when women go into labor or before labor, they start bleeding internally, so they have
Mm.
hemorrhage
Yep.
internally. And if it takes a while for them to get to hospital, they're gone by the time they get there
Yeah.
or shortly after they get there. So this particular um, device, it straps onto women and it stops the internal bleeding. and they can live for up to 48 hours.
Wow,
You
that's
know, and
good.
it protects their vital organs, and they can live up to, you know, at least 2 days,
At least
and that gives
to
them
get to hospital. Yes.
absolutely to get to the right place at the right time and get the right attention. So when I came across this research, I thought, wow, this would be fantastic, you know, to raise money for a garment like this, and be able to distribute it all across Nigeria. So I didn't have, you know, I couldn't solve all the problem, but I thought, well, maybe one per state in Nigeria will be a good starting point. So I might not be able to solve everyone's problem, but maybe donate one per state. So I did a bit of fundraising. I didn't get my 37, but I was able to raise some money, and I donated that.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful to those that also contributed towards that campaign, and gave that to you know, those women in those rural areas, and that could help improve, you know, their life outcomes. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's kind of an example of something I got involved in.
Mm.
There were other conversations I had with a few other health institutions in Nigeria, but they didn't bear fruit. So I'm looking forward to doing more things in Nigeria
Yeah.
if I get the right collaborations, and you know, in other areas. And but also I'm very keen on raising awareness. I think that awareness piece is the biggest piece. You know, so people know what to look for when they're going through things like this, where to get help, where to access support, emotional support, psychological support, and also the financial support is so important. Some people don't have the money to pay their medical bill, and unfortunately, I think the biggest difference between the UK and Nigeria is that we have access to the NHS. We don't
Yeah.
have to pay for our medical bill at the point
Oh,
of receipt.
sorry,
Well,
sorry.
we paid taxes. I
Exactly.
know, I know,
Okay, because we
I
said
know.
that
We pay
a
taxes. I
lot. We
know.
don't pay. Yes, we pay.
Yeah. No, but what I mean is, you
Yeah,
know, you're not
I
asked to pay
understand.
what, you know,
Yes.
because unfortunately in Nigeria, if you don't pay your bills, you're not being treated, and people
Yeah.
actually die
Yeah.
because they don't have the financial means. So even if it was something that you could pay afterwards and get treated first, then that's understandable. But
Yeah.
if you it's like no money, no treatment, you
Mm,
know,
mm,
unfortunately, and people are dying because they can't
yeah.
afford it. You know, and you know, having a baby is not cheap. It is a lot of money. You know, the appointments, especially if there are medical complications as well. People that need you know, fertility treatments as well. You know,
Yeah.
it is a lot of money, and some people can't even afford that. So yeah, so these are some of the challenges I think, you know, that we're grappling with in Africa. And also I guess the more is also around the mental support. You know, when we're going through challenges like this, where do you turn to? You know, because sometimes even some people even don't get support from faith spaces. They don't get support from family. You know, they don't get support from friends. So where do you turn to if all
Mm,
those places that are meant to be a support system are
yeah.
actually unsupportive?
Mm, yeah. You're right. You're right. We have challenges. See, since I started this podcast and coaching young Africans, I've always told them one thing. One thing. Yes, we have a lot of challenges, and that's why they and all of us as Africans, we have the opportunity to make things happen. Okay. Yes, we have a lot of apart from the issue, the particular issues we're trying to solve, we have other issues actually stopping us from solving. And for me, that's the biggest challenges I think we actually have. Not that we have poverty, healthcare issues. No, those are very solvable. Okay, but the most important difficulty is that somehow there's someone or some people stopping us from solving those issues, and that's what I scratch my head, asking myself why. So yeah, so you have dabbled in a few things in Africa. So what kind of support systems or resources are most lacking for women in Nigeria or Africa when it comes to uh, reproductive maternal health?
Okay. So yes, I guess it's well, so I kind of touched a bit on that in
Yes, you
some of
did.
my other replies. So it's, so I think there are different layers to it. So that there's that financial support. So for
Okay.
those, especially for those who can conceive naturally, they go down the, fertility treatment routes, and there are different types, and some of them are very expensive. And for some reason, some people don't even they don't have a successful outcome the first time, second or third time. So for some people, if you're lucky to even get a grant, it might be a one-off grant. And if
Mm.
if it doesn't happen at that occasion, on that occasion, then it means that you don't have another chance. So, and then if you're going to go, and some people have spent, a lot of money, their life savings, to have that family that they so desire. So finances is the biggest barrier, especially if people are going through, they need to go through fertility treatments. So yeah, so that's kind of one big barrier. Because of the complexity of the journey of infertility or loss for those that may have like miscarriages. So those are medical issues that need to be checked out. So there's also that financial implication. If you don't have
Yeah.
the funds, you can't do those tests. They can't explore what's going on. Also there's that emotional support. I mean, things are changing now, with the current generation, where people are open to counseling or therapy. Some people, just the emotional stress of having to deal with all of this,
Yeah.
or going through, or, having, to navigate, that infertility experience, or to actually go through like fertility treatments and it doesn't work. And then having to try again. So some people need that emotional, support or psychological support. And there's also money involved in that, if you were to get a counselor or a therapist to talk to. So the fact that also is also linked to finances. But also the fact is, some people don't even think that's necessary. They might
Mm.
think, why do you want to talk to somebody? But I mean, a lot has been talked about mental health nowadays. So I think we're in a better place when it comes to mental health. But some people may still frown at things like, oh, there's nothing like mental health. Why do you need to talk to somebody? And some people kind of still may feel like still a taboo. So if people have that belief, they kind of deal with all of that internally, and
Yeah.
it doesn't help them, emotionally. So yeah, so these are some of the, I would say this is some of the challenges, and then also maybe some of our beliefs,
Yeah.
traditional beliefs or people's opinions on why things haven't happened, or why or maybe or I mean, because I had two losses back to back.
Yeah.
There were things that were being said, oh, maybe it's, you've done something, or something, someone is after you, things like that. So, and for some people, if they wear that on their sleeves, it can weigh them down, and
Yeah.
then you can start becoming very suspicious of everybody and
Mm.
thinking, oh, maybe it's this person, or they said something, or they're after me. And then you start having internal enemies. And then, also it causes tension internally for you, and
Yeah.
stress. So yes, these are I think some of the things that, from our cultural perspective, or in an African context, families or couples may grapple with, as they navigate some of these challenges.
Yeah. Now, I want to take a little bit of detour here.
Okay.
Uh, See, in recent years, I've found out that in society, modern society, there are some things we are not allowed to talk about, and I will tell you that exactly is why I started this podcast. Okay, and I'll be honest. Since I started the podcast, many of those things which we are not allowed to talk about, I still haven't talked about them, because when I bring someone to talk about them, I will tell you many have, after we set the dates and everything, they decline because they don't want to talk about those things. And for me, I think it's a very, very dangerous thing when we know there's something there, something important, yet we don't want to talk about them because some people would maybe cancel us. Okay. Now, I'm a father of 3 daughters. I talk about anything I think is important for my daughters. And all the things you have been talking about are very, very important for my daughters. Now, infertility is a big, big deal, especially for people who actually want to have babies. There, there are issues, medical issues, but I've listened to a lot of women online on shows crying that they made a particular mistake, that they waited too long. See, we're biological beings. We're not machines. We can't just decide that at any time I can make up my mind and go ahead and have babies. Unfortunate. The reality is that once you pass a certain ages, your ability to have children will diminish. That's the biological circumstance. Okay. So I think we also need, when we talk about infertility, we need to talk about, hey, if you want babies, if you want babies, then it's to your interest to start early. What do you say about that?
Good question. I mean, I guess, you know, people having that, well, I mean, I know one of the sessions I had, I know one of the gynecologists, I think, kind of talked about, the importance of age and timing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that element of that. But also there's also that thing of personal choice,
Yes.
and everyone's timetable might be, everyone's kind of timetable in life might be different. Also, there's also that topic about, finding the right person. So some people, if they haven't found the right person, they're not ready to start a family. Some people are happy to start without the right person. Some people decide to get a donor. So that some people could go with surrogates option. So I guess it depends on people's principles and values and what it is that their personal goals.
Yeah.
So we can't make that decision. I can't make that
No,
decision for you.
that's
Yeah,
why
I know.
I asked the question.
Yeah.
I said it. If you want, okay,
Yes,
I'm not
absolutely.
asking everybody. Okay, I'm saying
Yeah.
those who want to have babies.
Yeah. Yeah, true. I mean, some people may want to have babies, but we decide, they want to have it at a certain time. And
Mm,
but I guess, it's knowledge is important, and being aware of the pros and cons. So if
yes.
you decide to wait later on, what does this mean? And what's the impact? What's the, financial, the mental impact? I know someone that she didn't have children till her 50s because she couldn't have children, and eventually went down the donor route.
Mm.
Her sister donated her eggs for her, and she didn't have children till she turned 50. But for her, at 50, she found that for her personally, it worked out because she was fit, she was present, she was more mature, and she had the time for the children. For
Well,
somebody else,
okay.
it might not be.
Okay,
It might not be.
I'll push back here. See,
But that's her. That's kind of our
yeah,
own
I
experience.
get that, but there are very few people who will choose that route. There are very, very, very few people who will choose to have baby at 50.
Yeah, but she had the baby at 50 because she couldn't conceive naturally. So it wasn't like
Okay,
also about personal choice.
all
It
right.
was that journey. And then getting to the point of, okay, someone wanted to donate eggs for her, and then it
Yeah.
worked. Because sometimes I think she also had a few failed attempts as well.
Mm.
So sometimes people's journeys are very different, and everyone's experience will be different, and they're slightly variations to their stories. But I think it's, being aware, I think information is very important, because some people
Yeah.
maybe would have made better choices if they had information and understood the impact of their decisions. Some people may still choose to go ahead because of certain reasons, because they decide they want to focus on their careers first, and then focus on becoming mothers later on.
Yeah.
But I guess and I think for me, one of the things I do through my waiting room platform is we hear different stories,
Yeah.
and everyone's story is totally different. Everyone's experience and their backgrounds are different, but having access to a wide range of experiences and circumstances behind their decisions will help people make informed choices,
Yeah.
because everyone's decision making is different and the
Of course.
circumstances are different. But I think it's important that we share these things and people have more information, and then they can make better choices, whatever
Yeah.
it is they decide to do. Because I also know some people become parents in old at a much older age, and it does have implications. So, even at my age, I can't even imagine having any children. I don't even have the energy personally, because right now, maybe when I was younger, I said, oh yeah, when I'm 50, I will have the energy. But right now, I don't. So I can't imagine myself running after any toddler and doing sleepless nights at this point.
Exactly.
So, but everyone's body is different. Everyone's story is different. So the fact that I
Well,
don't have
see,
this energy
you said it again.
is
I'll push
different.
back here. I'll push back again. See, everybody's body is different, okay? But naturally, our energies are more vibrant the younger we are. The older we are, more aches here, there. See, that's not, see, this is nature. We are human beings, part of nature, right? See, saying that everybody is different, it's not natural. Okay.
But some
Let
people, well, I do know some people that, I
No,
mean,
no,
I
no.
totally get, I totally get your
You're,
points.
you're talking about 0.0000%. Okay. Let's talk about the majority of people. Okay. For the majority of people, if they want children, they need to start early. See, like I told you, I have 3 daughters, right? I tell them, if you want, then you need to start early, right?
Yeah, but
My
but
mom,
sometimes life circumstances.
my mom had me as 23, right? See, I come from a very big family, when I say big family, right? I have, I have first cousins about 60, at least 60. There's a few I don't know because they are much younger than I am, and I haven't seen them for years, okay? But I know for a fact I have 6, 7 cousins around my age who today don't female cousins who today don't have children, and they are livid. Okay, my own cousins, they don't like it because they didn't plan that. I have friends, my schoolmates who are not happy because their circumstance today wasn't what they planned. And many of these people waited too long because the society we lived in at that time didn't prioritize these things. They told them, you can do it later. I know people who have been on IVF. They have done several rounds of IVFs. None of them have worked. They did that because they waited too long. So see, it's important if we really want to solve these problems to actually talk about the facts. If you want children, then you need to start early. You need to start planning. Okay, you need to start picking who you will have children with early enough. If you wait for a long time, maybe to your 30s, and then you start looking to find a person, most likely you have the difficulties that we're talking about today in terms of.
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably just add to that, because sometimes sometimes it's not just about waiting. So
Yep.
waiting is one
Okay.
aspect. For some people, there are a lot of medical complications,
Yes, those are
So,
those.
and with those ones, sometimes it's not just about when you start, so if there are medical complications, people that have fibroids, that have PCOS, all these things are very complex
Yeah.
um prognosis, and sometimes it's not as easy as well, because you started early or you started late, because there are complications in itself, and some people it takes a while. So even starting early, some people will still, I know some people that have waited maybe 10, 12 years before they even, and they've been trying before they even had children. So not to say they did not start early,
Okay.
but because of those medical complications, it just took that long. And some people, they had to, have operations upon operations to be able to now be able to start trying. And then also maybe it took a bit of time before they could actually conceive, or some people may have had losses in between. So some people, it's not a age issue or waiting. It's a medical condition or medical complications that have
Yeah.
made. So I guess, it's a case by case, but of course, if we can learn from others, I do agree that, we share our
Mm.
stories, and if there are things we can pick up that will make life easier for us or for those coming behind us, it's
Yeah.
important. But sometimes people's stories are different, or their
Yeah.
situations are varied, so we just need to kind of it's not a one blanket fits all kind of
It is not.
situation.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's not. See. My point is this. My point is this. We need to be honest with ourselves. The more we talk about these things, the more we help people. Okay, with their different circumstances. Okay,
absolutely.
but saying there are things we cannot talk about is a big disservice to everyone. Okay, for me, there should not be anything we can't talk about.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I've seen this so many times. There are so many issues that it's as if, oh, you can't talk about them because you're not part of the demography that affects. No, we are humans, and anything that affects you, I can talk about because I'm human. Yes, maybe I am not because it has I don't know enough about it, but yeah, maybe I can ask questions, right? So see, for me, as Africans, we need to talk about everything. We need to ask questions about everything to improve the knowledge base. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
uh, denying some people or the whole society opportunity for talking about anything is a big disservice, and that's what I don't want us to to have. All right? Yeah. Thank you very much. So, see, you have that you have the waiting room. Okay. So, what inspired you to create the space? How has it grown over time?
Okay. So what inspired me to create the waiting room was back in 20, I think it was 2017, if
Okay.
I'm correct. It was going to, well, I was kind of approaching the 15th anniversary of, sorry, not 2017, sorry, 2021. I was thinking that's
Okay.
not right. 2021. I was approaching the 15th anniversary of my first
Mm,
baby's loss, and I wanted to do something. So I've had many ideas in the past, but I think at the beginning of that year, I began to think, okay, actually, what do I really want to do? I wanted to just mark that milestone, and just to, to remember my son, but also to impact lives. And I kind of was thinking about it. And I did kind of reflect that I'm very kind of relational in my relationship with God, and I kind of pray about a lot of things. And I kind of was thinking about it. And in one of those moments, I think I was cooking in my kitchen and I was listening to a song, a gospel song, Pour It Out by Tasha Cobbs. And I just kind of felt, based on the words of the song, that a lot of women are going through a lot of stuff, in this space. I just support a lot of women on a one-to-one basis. I've done a
okay.
couple of events in the past, prior to 2021. And I just thought, what else can I do? And when I'm listening to that song, I just felt kind of, I needed to create a space to bring women
So,
together.
so what was the song again?
It's called Pour It
Pour
Out.
it out. Pour it
Yeah,
out. Okay.
yeah,
Good.
Pour It Out by Tasha Cobbs.
Okay.
So as I kind of was listening to that song, I kind of felt, I need to bring women together. And I've kind of, funny enough, in my first book, I talked about meeting women one day in person. But I felt that was what I should do, and I also kind of felt the name should be called the waiting room. So I
Okay.
felt inspired to call it the waiting room. So I had a name, but I wasn't too sure about the name because I just thought the waiting room sounds like like a hospital. I spoke to one of my friends, and she said, "Oh, that sounds like being in a hospital waiting room. It's not a pleasant place. I don't think that's a good name." But I pondered on it, and by now I felt reassured that that should be the name.
Mm.
And then it come July
I can
2021,
see
we
I can see behind you the waiting
absolutely.
room, always a mom. Mm.
Yes. So the waiting room was born in July 2021. We kicked off with our first meeting. I had four team members, women that are part of my network. Three of them I have supported on their own journeys, and
Okay.
they all three of them are moms of two children each. So
Excellent.
when I met them, they'd been through their own losses, and now they're moms. They're mom with two. They all have two children each, and the last person is my best friend. And
Wow.
she lives in the States. So we came together and started the waiting room. So it was to create a safe space where women could come together without any fear of judgments, in a safe space. They could share their stories, receive support, and prayers and encouragement, and hear from other women and on their own journey, either
Yeah.
through infertility, miscarriage, or baby loss. So we'll be celebrating our fourth anniversary in the next couple of months. We've come across all kinds of women all across the world.
Mm.
So we started off as a kind of a small thing. We meet once a month, but as the years have gone by, we kind of reduced the number of meetings because of holidays like Easter and Christmas and summer. We don't have meetings then. But we meet monthly, apart from those three months in the year.
Okay.
And then we have speakers from different places. We've also kind of also expanded it to include men. So sometimes we bring in couples to share
Ah.
their story,
Okay.
because found that men are also very vital in this conversation. So women
Yes.
are more open to having conversations, but men deal with it in a slightly different way. But men need to hear some of this conversation. So we kind of incorporate couple sessions and have couple guest speakers so that to encourage other men to come. We've also had like men panels, so during Father's Day, we will bring in men to kind of share their stories and their journey
Okay.
to fatherhood, and maybe their infertility or baby loss experiences. But we also make it real life. We also look at people's holistic experience, not just parenthood or that journey to motherhood or fatherhood. We also look at them as other things they're involved in, because we believe that as we are waiting, we can live in that wait. We don't want, we believe that, and that's the advice we get from many of the women that have been on that journey, that
Yeah.
they wish they had lived more. And then we pass that on to those who are coming behind us. That even while we are waiting, yes, it's difficult, yes, it's tough, but we can live in the wait, because when
Yeah.
we move to another season, you can't reclaim that lost time back. And so it's making that period count even while you're waiting, and not just existing. We want women to thrive even while they're waiting and as they are looking forward to the next season of their lives. So yes, it's been an exciting journey. We've had some amazing stories and miracles along the way. Some women, even we've had some babies this year. That
Excellent.
so some of the women, some after a couple of failed IVFs, a couple of losses. So I think about three. One was a set of twins, and one
Wow.
she had a baby girl. So those kind of stories, encourage us. And then some are still on that journey. So we're still supporting
Yeah.
women
Yeah.
on that journey. Yeah.
Good. See, again, I will tell you, your work is very, very vital. Okay. Your work is very, very vital, especially in this era. Because, like you said, many of us feel reluctant to talk about these things for various reasons. And it's important that we talk about them, that we support each other. And yeah, all right. Thank you very much. So, the next part of your journey, okay, what's your upcoming, do you have any upcoming project?
Yeah, well, the eminent one is the retreat we have in June. So
Okay.
last year, for the very first time last year in October, we had an in-person event, and many of the women we'd met online, and some we didn't know. We had a first in-person event in London. It was amazing, and people, women are still talking about it. You know, the
Wow.
space to just share, the space for, you know, to kind of talk about our stories and our journeys and receive encouragement, support. You know, women kind of felt they could actually they felt that sense of belonging. The
Okay.
event was called Treasured. They felt, you know, really treasured. They felt felt loved. You
Yeah.
know, so it was a time. I mean, it was a whole day event, but the time went so quickly, and
Yeah.
it was
See,
like,
when
you
you
know,
when you're having fun,
absolutely.
time flies.
It
Yeah.
does. Couldn't believe how we got to the end of the day. But yeah, so one of the things I decided to do, you know, following on from that day's event is to have a retreat. So we have a retreat coming up in June.
Okay.
So yeah, we're looking forward to that.
When
Um,
is it and what venue?
okay, so it's from the 6th to the 8th of June. It's in the
Okay. Is it
conference
a
center.
weekend?
It's
Yeah.
a weekend away, yes. Yeah, because we just
Great.
felt we need
Great.
more time.
Yeah.
So we will have more time to bond, more time to talk, more time to share, and more time to just support women that need that individual support as well. So we're not going to
Hmm.
be rushing to leave in the evening. You know, we'll have, you know, that weekend together. So we're looking forward to
Okay.
that. So
Okay.
planning is underway. So we're
Okay.
nearly
Oh,
there.
and venue?
So it's a conference center called Highly Conference Center is in Hoddesdon.
Okay.
So that's somewhere in Essex.
Okay. I mean,
So yeah.
hey, that's great. That's great. Hey, like I said, when you're having fun, time flies. So it's good you guys have decided to make it a weekend getaway. Okay. I know how things are. Like I said, I grew up around women all my life, so I know how you girls are. Yeah, yeah, that's good. So let's go into some of my favorite topics. Okay, I love reading, and you as an author, right? So you have the opportunity to tell us about your books. But I normally ask my guests to give us 5 books. Now you're an author, 2 books, right? So your 2 books will come first, and then you find 3 other books to tell us about. Now, take your time, describe your book, talk about them. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I actually have 3 books, but
Oh, okay.
two is around baby loss, and then one isn't about baby loss.
Okay.
So with the baby loss books, the first is Always a Mom: How I Survived My Baby Loss, and for
Mm.
me, this was like the kind of questions I kind of had in my head, you know, while I was processing all the things that happened to me, you know, those early days, those, you know, couple of months, you know, while I was trying to figure out exactly, you know, what really happened here. You know, why
So
did all of this happen to
the
me?
title is what?
Always a mom. You
Oh,
might not be able to see
I
it.
can
Yeah,
see
you can't see it. Don't worry. Okay, but it's called Always a Mom. It's all on my
all
website.
always a mom. Okay, that
Yeah,
okay. Oh, good, good.
so it's on my website, funkeoham.com.
Okay.
So I talked about, you know,
It's not on Amazon.
it is on Amazon.
Okay,
Well, I
good.
think some of it, not everything. I think
Okay.
one, yeah, I think the ebooks are available, and then the memoir, which is like a recent one,
Mm.
you can get
So
the hard copy as well.
where can people find it on your website?
So funkeoham.com and
Okay.
also on Amazon.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
if you are in Nigeria, Roving Heights Bookshop.
Okay. Good. Good. All
Yeah,
right.
so Always a Mom, I think it was more about kind of the process I went through. And it was meant to be like a book you can pick up, even you can read in like 1 or 2 hours, depending on how fast you read it. It's
Okay.
very intriguing. People have said to me they can't put it down. And I talked about, you know, the fears I had, you know, for subsequent pregnancies, because I told you, you know, I had different medical prognoses,
Yes.
you know, how I actually got to actually start living again after my loss, and then
Mm.
how I found purpose in my pain. And then some of the questions I had around motherhood, you know, should I celebrate Mother's Day? You know, what does that mean for me? So even
Ooh.
while I lost my children, what does that mean for me? And then when I
Mm.
was trying to conceive, what does that mean for me? You know, so what does motherhood? Because when people, and that's why I came up with the name Always a Mom. Because
Yeah.
some people kind of said to me, "Oh, your babies are dead, so you don't have it. You're not a mom."
Mm.
But I said I'm always going to be a mom because, you know, they are alive in heaven. So to me, that was where that name came from. That I will always be a mom. You know, so sometimes I say I'm a mom of 4. Sometimes I say I'm a mom of 2. And either way, they're still correct to me. So I can choose to
Okay.
acknowledge them and talk about them. But the fact I'm not talking about them doesn't mean they are not mine or they never existed.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's also, changing that narrative about, acknowledging people's, children, even though they're not here,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they never existed. So some people kind of, they have a slogan that says, say their name. So the fact that they're not here doesn't mean I can't say their name or
Mm,
remember
mm,
them
mm.
or recognize that they existed. So it's important that women that have been through this, that their babies are not forgotten. And
Yeah.
they are recognized as mothers, whether you physically saw the baby or not. As far as that baby was conceived,
Yeah.
to that mom, that baby existed.
Okay.
So yes, I talked about, just different things that kind of, why did this happen to me? How I dealt with my broken heart, why am I not even a mommy to start with? I couldn't understand, when bad things happen to good people. So
Yeah.
it has about 30 kind of short reflections
Yeah.
on those questions. So there are 30 kind of different topics, but they're all
Very
very
good.
short and sweet.
Okay.
And so many people can read in a couple of hours. So Believe is my memoir. That's kind of my book, and that's my
Yeah.
story undiluted. I didn't hide
Mm.
anything. From the very beginning, from the moment I got married, all my aspirations, our goals, our dreams, to the time I conceived, to the time I lost my babies, and then to the time my two sons were born. That story, because I just felt it had to be told. Even funny
Yeah.
enough, when I read the story, even now, sometimes I can't remember all the things I went through, and I'm glad I documented it
Yeah.
because I'm thinking, did I actually go through all of that? Is this the journey I walked
Yeah.
through? So
See,
sometimes I can't even
we tend to
recognize.
forget things. That's why it's good to.
Absolutely.
That's why it's good to document. Yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
so I'm so glad I documented it because I look back and I really see how far I have come.
Yeah.
And also the importance of speaking up for yourself, especially when you're a Black woman, is
Mm.
important. Especially when you've been, we know what the stats are against us. It's important to speak up for yourself and advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
I talked about what helped me through that journey. And there's also a poem I kind of wrote as well, through that journey and reflection of my whole kind of journey. So that's kind
Good.
of believe. And then,
Good.
shortly after because I used to work with women, I talked about I had a mentoring platform.
Yeah.
After the losses, I just couldn't deal with that. I closed
Mm.
everything. I just thought I can't deal with that. Closed everything. I just needed the headspace. I needed to deal with what was going on with me. And then not too long after I had two boys. So the year I lost my daughter that was born premature, the same year at the end of the year I had my son.
Wow.
So I kind of got busy. Then 3 years after I had another son. But one of the things I realized towards as so I now had the family,
Yeah.
living children as well, and I realized that there was still more to me because uh, I kind of waited for this all my for a very long time, wanting to be
Yeah.
a mother. But now I was now a mother. I also realized, what? There's a lot to me than motherhood. So motherhood is not just it's not my start and end.
Mm.
There's a lot more to me, and that was where the third book came from. Well, but third book, but second book that was published. That I now came up with a story that is more to me. And
Yeah.
what inspired that was I lived with my uncle in Ibadan, my dad's junior brother and his family.
Yeah.
And he had this Russian dolls in his studies. So my uncle traveled the world. He's a vet doctor and
Okay.
he worked with WHO. He's a professor as well and traveled
Okay.
around the world. And so I was always fascinated with all the stories he told when he traveled. But there was a particular Russian doll in his study that was very intriguing for me. So with the Russian doll, each time you open it, there's another doll inside, and you open it, there's
Ah.
another doll, and then some have up to 15 sets, some have 20. And for me,
Wow.
as a young girl, I was just so fascinated with this concept, and that was where the concept for the book came from. That even within us, you might think, oh, it's just because what you see at the top is just one Russian doll, but if you
Yeah.
don't open it, you don't realize there's another, and then you open it,
Yeah.
there's another, and there's
Yeah.
another. And
Yeah.
I just realized that there was a lot of layers to me
To
as a
you.
person. There's a lot more that, I don't even know about and people have not even seen. And that's the concept of the book, that there's more to
To
you. So
you.
every one of
Wow.
us, there's more. So
Interesting.
no matter your past, no matter your achievements, no matter your limitations, no matter your failures, no matter your successes, there's still a lot more to us. But what is special about this book was I didn't write it all by myself. I wanted to bring all like different women all across the world
Yeah.
to contribute to this book. So it's a quote book,
Okay.
and it has kind of, we looked at 5 themes. For us to be more, we have to learn more, we have to be more, see more, live more, and love more. So the
Very
75
good.
women contributed on those 5 different aspects,
Mm.
and kind of
Mm. Mm.
shared their own perspective on what that means. So yeah, so it's funny that I did the book. The book was from conception to publishing was about 2 months. So that's the fastest book I've ever been
Okay.
involved in. So it's one of my proud. In the middle of that, I was actually also moving house, and I had 2 young kids at that point.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's a very special book because it was a collaboration, but it's also the fact that women came together to achieve something amazing, and it was published on International Women's Day, and that
Okay.
was my 37th birthday. So it's a
Wow.
very, very special book to me, and also the significance of what that Russian doll means. That there's so much more to us. So yeah, so that's the third book.
Yeah.
Um, the other books that have influenced me, there are quite a few other ones, but one of the key books that has influenced me for more than 3 decades, personally for me, is the Bible. So I know you get a lot of recommendations. I'm not sure if anyone has ever said that here, but for
See,
me, it's personal.
so many people have said, see, uh,
Thank
see,
you.
like I said, I'm not religious. That means I'm no longer religious. But in my younger days, I was. Okay, I went to church. Not only went to church, I asked a lot of questions, read a lot of religious history, Christian history. I've read the Bible cover to cover several times. So, and I will tell you, the Bible is one of my most influential books ever. Okay, so see, I beg my children to pick it up and read because they come to me complaining about this, that. I tell them, read this. The Bible talks about it. Yeah. The Bible
Okay,
is,
so
yeah.
yeah, so it's a book that's transformed my life and helped me through all kinds of seasons, the good, the not so good, the stretching, getting out of my comfort zone, and I think it's just very fascinating. Because I've been a Christian for over 3 decades, and for me, it's a book that will never grow old. I keep on learning,
Yeah.
I keep on being inspired, and I think for me, it's not just a book; it's a book that speaks to me. So I'm not just reading like a storybook, but I'm also hearing God's voice as I read that Bible.
Mm,
So for me, it's instructional, it's a guide, it's a
yeah.
comfort, it's a comfort, it's directional in terms of choices I'm making. And I think it's just life transforming. So personally, yeah, so I that's kind of my
The
fourth
Bible,
book.
yes. Thank you.
And I had 2 other books, but the last one, because you
No,
said five.
tick. So tick. Go on. Go on.
Okay, so the next one is my husband's book.
Okay.
So I think this is a book he published in, what year was this? I think in 2012.
Okay.
It's called Seed Business, and for me, I think this book,
Seed business. Okay.
yeah, it's a book every African should read.
Okay. He's an
Especially when
entrepreneur.
we he's an entrepreneur, he's also an
Mm,
academic, but
mm.
I think he's a book that I think it was just revolutionary when I read it. It says think big but start small. And I
Oh,
think
okay.
for us as Africans, we want to have a whole new Africa,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to start small. And
Small,
I think for
yes.
me, and he said, the key thing here is that God has given everyone a seed, and that's all that we need to succeed. So it's a seed, it's a seed.
I need to talk about I need to talk to him about that.
So it's all about seed stage. So we all have something. There's no one that was born without nothing.
Yeah.
And all that we need, we've got that in that seed. And with seeds, you have to plant it. There's work to be done. You have to
Okay.
plant it to get the results. And there are different kinds of seeds. So some results, maybe you get them in 3 months, you get them in
Yeah.
10, in 1 year, some is
Very
like 20
good.
years. You
See,
know. So
Mr.
yeah,
Jim Rohn talks about
yes.
that. Yeah. Very,
Yeah.
very interesting, interesting analogy. Yes, about life.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a very, very it's a very
Impactful thing. Yeah.
impactful book. Yeah. I mean, and I feel that with Africa,
T-
it's, and he's very
title
passionate about
again.
Africa. Seed business.
Seed business. Okay.
Seed business. So think big, but start small.
Start small. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Very
So, and
good.
I think that will help us in Africa as we talk about bringing change and
Yeah,
transformation. That we have big dreams, but we need to start, and we can start small with what
good.
we have, and that will get us eventually to where we want to be.
Very
So
good.
yeah, and the last book I would say is a book I read about 14 years ago.
Okay.
I can't remember the content, every content, but I know that the book shaped my life, and
Okay.
it was kind of interesting because I was trying to do a quick review on the book and to jog my memory on what it was I read. And it was interesting that one of the things it's called How to Win and Influence
Oh,
People.
okay. Can
Dale, Dale. I think
Dale
it's Dale. I'm not sure.
Carnegie.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
Carnegie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I read that book, it really
Yeah.
transformed me. And I can't remember exactly, but I just knew that when I read it, and I think that's helped me in terms of all the initiatives I run because,
Yeah.
you know, I kind of do a lot of nonprofit stuff and I do get a lot of support. And I believe that's kind of one of the books that shaped, that journey in terms of, getting support, seeking advice, getting people on board and securing buy-in. And I think
Yes.
that really helped, so it's all about, how to connect to people,
People. Yes.
how to get the best from people and also get buy-in. So it's not just, and how to do it in a nice way and not in a
Yeah.
nasty way. I think
Yeah.
that was the key thing there for me. And I think one of the quick reviews I read today was talking about one of the things he said in the book was remembering people's names, and that's
Yeah.
something I'm very particular about. So I guess maybe that's where I got it from. So yeah, there are a lot of things maybe I do without even remembering where I got it from, but I know that
Mm.
book really transformed me, and I felt,
Yeah.
this was an amazing read, and
See,
transformational read.
that's a book. That's a book I read maybe definitely over 10, 20 years ago now. Uh, I it's it did so much good for me that I bought the the teenage version
Okay.
for my daughters. Okay. Uh, Unfortunately, these young people don't read so much.
Are you
Okay.
telling me?
Okay. I read a lot, and somehow they look at me as strange, because I mean when my first daughter turned 18 2 years ago, I bought 5 books. That was my present for her. I give her 5 books. Well, I unfortunately I can't tell you today that she has read all of them. But I tell them these things I tell you and I share with you. If you come back to me in 10 years, 20 years, I will still say the same thing. So
Mm.
it's good for you to start getting them into your head. I'm not going to change. Anyway,
I'm sure one
that
day
that
they'll
that
pick it
that
up.
book that book I say what I say because I know when they are in different situations, they will remember what Daddy said, even if they didn't appreciate it when I said it. They will
True.
say, "Okay, Daddy said this. Okay, maybe it will help them." Thank you very much.
My
Thank you very
pleasure.
much. Normally, I would ask my guests to tell young Africans to give them advice, but I think I will go a different route, okay? Because uh, talking to you today has been very insightful, okay, and impactful. And what we talked about is unique, okay? It's about helping society, helping humanity, helping us strive, thrive as human beings. Okay, because without us having children to replace us, uh, we are going extinct. So your work is like Elon Musk who wants to have 2,000 children to make sure we don't go extinct. Okay, you
I'm
are.
sure we won't. I'm sure we won't go extinct. I'm sure some
So
people are trying to depopulate the human race, even.
okay. So I'll ask you this one. Your message. What message would you leave our listeners with, especially those who may be silently struggling, okay, or unsure of how to support others. Okay, your work is so impactful. I want other people to copy you and do something similar. So, what advice would you give them?
Okay, so for, I mean, for someone walking this road
Mm,
currently, I want them to know they're not alone. I think that was one of the key reasons I started this work, is for women to know, and men as well, that are going through this, or even their extended family and loved ones. Because when couples go through this, it's not just the couple.
yes.
The grandmother, the mother of the couple are also feeling it, the fathers
Yeah.
of the couple, the siblings of the couple, extended family, and those that love them feel it. So I
Yeah.
want them to know they are not alone. There's support out there. Please do reach out. There are many support groups like mine. There are many groups now. Things have changed compared to nearly 20 years ago when I walked this journey. So there's a lot more awareness. There's a lot more support. So please, take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Even while we are waiting, I want us to know that life can still be full of meaning, even while we are waiting. So it's not to put our life at a standstill.
Yeah.
So we use the phrase that we want people to live in the wait. So while we are
Okay.
waiting, we can still live. We can still, do things. We can still enjoy life as a couple. We can still follow other dreams that we have, while we're kind of preparing for the next step.
Yes.
So, still live while you're waiting. And for those that care about these people, be there, listen. It's not about giving advice. It's not about telling them what to do. They probably know what they need to do. But,
Mm,
just be present, show up for them, and let them know that you're there, and sometimes you can be there in quiet ways, sending messages, giving them hugs, praying along with them if you pray. If there are relevant events you think they can benefit from, you can share that, but be sensitive and understand, what they want or they don't want. So if you know that you're encroaching, then do step back.
yeah.
But I think it's just being present, and visibly, and even in the background as well. Things like Mother's Day, celebrate the women. It's not because they don't have a biological child doesn't mean they cannot be celebrated.
Yeah.
So I think it's just being there, being sensitive, and also educate yourself. There's so much information on YouTube, on Google. For us in the waiting, we open up our rooms to anybody, because
Mm,
one of the things, as we started progressing, we realized, what, all these things we are saying here, those that need to hear it are not even in this room. So
yeah.
those family members or friends that can support you, and then we open the up so anyone can come in. You can come in. It's a safe space, and of course you respect people's comments and listen. But
Yeah.
people that come in are so grateful that we allow them into the room.
Mm,
So we open it up to anybody, even young people that are not even married, to come. Faith leaders come. Grandparents come. Even those that had children, and their grandparents even come as well, because they will have children that getting married, so they want to know. So it's open to anybody. No one is excluded. Faith. It doesn't matter what faith beliefs you have. It's open to everybody.
yeah.
So I want people to be equipped, and they are more aware, and they're more sensitive, and they're more empathetic. So that's one of the reasons why we open up the room. So yeah, so
Okay.
attend events like that. Educate yourself so that you're in a better position to support them better.
Yes.
So yeah, those are some of the things I would say.
Good. 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 Wow. See, I've said this several times, but I'll still say it again. Your work is very important. Okay. So, to finish, I'll ask you, what is your vision for Africa for maternal health, for helping people going through fertility difficulties in the next 20, 30 years?
Mm. I guess the first thing, well, for fertility, well, I guess There are two strands. So let me get this out of my of my head first. With maternal health, I don't want women dying. My vision is that no woman dies in pregnancy or childbirth.
Yeah.
Because no woman should die giving birth to new life. So
Mm.
I think my desire, my dream is that women are supported.
Yeah.
And they don't have to die because they are having children.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. For those who are going through infertility, is having access to medical support, is having access to emotional support and psychological support.
Yeah.
So financial support for those, who need help with medical bills,
Yeah.
those who need to go for fertility treatments, and also emotional support because some of these things can be very demanding. I haven't gone through a fertility treatment before, but from the stories I've heard, it is mentally, physically, emotionally draining.
Yeah.
So people need support, as they walk this journey. And people also need sometimes their space and privacy. We come from a culture where people, even before 9 months, people are already checking after you got married.
Mm.
Oh, is there
Mm.
any baby there? When are we coming for the naming ceremony? They might say it as a joke, but some of these things are very sensitive. So people don't know even the battles people are facing. And even it might
Yeah.
be a jokey comment, but it's a very sensitive topic. People kind of touching people's tummy, oh, is there something there? So people need to be very, very careful that these things are very offensive, and asking personal questions, when I'm sure when the baby comes, you will know if someone had a baby. So we don't need to be, prying into people's private businesses. So personally for me, it's just supporting them from a distance.
Yeah.
If you have a very close relationship and you feel you can talk about it, then yes. But if you don't, we need to learn to mind our own business
Mm.
in a nice way, not in a rude way. Because sometimes these things are very, very sensitive. People are
Mm.
fighting their own battles, and
Yeah.
people and also maybe when people invite people to certain things and they don't want to come, don't take it offensive. Don't be offended. But sometimes people just, some of those environments trigger them. So maybe
Yeah.
they go for a naming ceremony or they go for a birthday party of a small child. Or some people go for birthday parties and because they don't have children, they don't give them anything. So people,
Mm.
women,
Mm.
some women
Mm.
feel, so women feel those things you know, or they call women barren. So those kind of words are very deep and very
Yeah.
hurtful. So I think, our language, being sensitive to women, going through this journey, sometimes, not trying to pry when it's not our business. And so people say, "Oh, I'm not trying to pry, but I'm prying." No, just don't pry. Just let them be. Let them be. So yeah, I think giving them space, respecting their wishes, and not taking anything personal. If they don't want to come, it's not personal. It's not about you. It's about what they're going through, and they're just trying to deal with, their own emotions. I think just being there for them, just supporting in ways that you can. And
Mm.
maybe also ask, how can I help? If there are ways, if they have a very close relationship, how do you
Yeah.
want me to support you?
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do? And if you know that something you've done, you've made them upset, be quick to apologize and don't take it personal and don't break your friendships because of that. Because sometimes people can feel very isolated because their friends have moved on. Life is very different. And also when you're
Yeah.
having conversations, let it not be all about your children. If your friend doesn't have a child, there are other things
Ooh.
you can talk about.
That's gonna
So
be
these are some
a
of the
big, a
things.
big,
Yeah.
a big challenge for many
Yeah.
women.
Yeah. Yeah, so they need to learn to talk about other things, as a
Yeah.
whole, not just about their own children, and
Yeah.
also it also comes down to even marriage. For those who are not married, not just about your husbands every minute. Yeah, because that's
Wow.
kind of what separates people because there's no more common ground, and then it naturally dissolves because
Yeah.
everyone has moved on. So yeah, I
Wow.
think this is some of the things we can do, just sensitivities and just being caring and being mindful of how we treat others on this journey.
Mm. Wow. Funke, thank you very much for being a wonderful, wonderful guest of the Think Big for Africa podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Yeah.